During this hour, we will go ahead and share some of the experiences and perspectives of our alumni panelists, and our conversation will focus on navigating from student to young alumni, as well as how the alumni relations team can continue to support the success of all alumni. So I'll get started with some quick introductions here. Our first panelist is Salvatore Perdomo. Sal has lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico since he graduated from Trinity in 2013. He currently works as a commercial real estate developer for Titan Development, the state's largest developer. Additionally, he competes as a post-collegiate distance runner for the Duke's Track Club. Sal was an urban studies and business administration double major at Trinity and competes as a two-sport NCAA athlete. He also spent 2 years as a resident mentor on campus. Since graduating, Sal has stayed involved with the Albuquerque Alumni Chapter Board, formerly serving as a chair, and was one of the Trinity Tower 5 Award recipients in 2019. Welcome, Sal.
Thank you.
Additionally, we have Hannah Tupper. She's a 2010 and 2013 graduate. She currently lives in Dallas, really technically the Colony, Plano area, and works for Texas Health Resources, which is the largest healthcare system in North Texas, as a director of their product development team. She was a business major with a concentration in management and English minor, a member of Sigma Theta Tau, and attended the Healthcare Administration graduate program. Since graduating, Hannah has served as the president of the Dallas Alumni Chapter since 2017, and has also served as the host committee for Trinity on Tour in Dallas in 2019. My name is Sydney Lopez, and I am the Young Alumni and Student Programs Coordinator. So in addition to supporting young alumni and students, I'm responsible for also developing a Young Alumni Council, for which we will be seeking volunteers to serve on the Planning and Advisory Board. Now, we are having a few technical difficulties, but we should have some additional panelists come on with us today. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and get started and jump into our first question. So for both Hannah and Sal, thinking back to your transition from student to young alumni, what sort of challenges, either personal or professional, did you face, and how did you work to overcome those challenges? Let's start with Hannah.
So I had an interesting transition because I graduated a semester early from Trinity. So I graduated in 2010, but came in with the class of 2011. So I had a semester there where I worked full time, but was still, involved with a lot of on-campus activities through my sorority, as well as just being on campus a lot because my friends were there. So it was a little bit of a strange transition for me, just still having friends on campus who are still going to Trinity, but also working full time. But looking back, it's kind of the best of both worlds. I was out there, starting my career, and then still getting to participate with friends and do all of those social things. So I think I would say, especially for people who are still in San Antonio after you graduate, it's nice to still have that connection to Trinity, since you're so close to there. And I'm sure, you have friends from different grades and different ages. And so it's nice to stay connected to that. And then of course, I transitioned onto the on-campus program for healthcare administration. So again, became a student, but then after I went off to my residency in Dallas, just staying connected to both my classmates from undergrad and from grad school, and I'm still really close with a lot of them. We try and visit each other when we can, but now during these days we do Zoom calls, and I've just made some really good friendships out of my time at Trinity. I think that's kind of that made the transition a lot easier, but it is jarring to go from school life to work life. It does take a little time to get used to that transition. It can be both physically and emotionally draining, but I think having things that you can look forward to, like visits with friends and social time and family, really help with that.
Great, thank you. Sal, anything additional?
Yeah, for sure. So no, Hannah hit the nail on the head with the transition from school life to work life kind of being a little jarring and a little bit draining. The biggest, kind of hurdle or challenge that I had to deal with was, when you're at Trinity or when you're at any university, you're in school in class for 4 to 6 hours a day, and then you're studying for 4 to 6 hours a day. And so in your work life, you're usually working 8 to 10 hours a day. So there's a lot of extra time that you have when you get out of college that when you get home from work, you have 4, 5, 6 hours to kind of give time. It's like you're not used to that. And it's pretty easy to get develop poor habits in terms of watching Netflix, watching TV, eating a lot, drinking a lot. I mean, you just have all this extra time. And so one of the best words of advice or best things that I've learned to do is develop more strong and more productive habits in terms of, exercising or reading or, writing or finding new hobbies or going out and meeting people, and transitioning that extra time from poor habits to strong habits, I think are really good long-term, really sets you up for really the rest of your life. So that's one of the biggest kind of challenges that I've seen and have had to kind of reposition and retransition to develop different habits. So, yeah.
Yeah, Sal, I would definitely agree with that. You don't have that homework time anymore. That you have to spend studying or doing homework, and so finding other things to do with that time, picking up some new hobbies and making new friends can be hard sometimes too, especially if you move to a new city. I'm sure Sal knows. Leaving that San Antonio bubble can be challenging. So making friends as an adult is not always as easy as it was on campus. So joining a community like a church or a club like a running club, I'm sure Sal's a part of, making friends with your neighbors, it's all those are all things that kind of can help transition you from that stage of life where you're always around your friends to being more independent on your own.
Yeah, it just takes a little bit more effort to really be
yeah.
practices. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's great advice. I think many recent graduates share that making friends and connections outside of the structure of a university is hard, and it is very challenging. So I think that advice you gave is really great. That's awesome. So kind of talking a little bit about on the professional side of starting your life after your time at Trinity, let's talk a little bit about maybe personal branding and the really the power of professional networking. Can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you've done that have worked for you over time?
I wasn't too prepared for this question because I thought Starjjil was going to handle it. No, the way I think about networking, and I'm in an industry that really promotes and cherishes, and you need to be networking, you need to be involved in the community, you do all those things. And it's one of the ways that I've kind of, had a group of people that I trust in terms of, really just understanding how interconnected a community is. And in Albuquerque, we're about half the size of San Antonio. So it's a pretty small urban area, and you run into, you cross paths with people in very a variety of ways. And so, what I've learned through networking, professional networking and social networking, is that it's all interconnected and it all thrives together, and it all helps in terms of your personal brand and everything related. So I see Starjjil's on now, so maybe he could
let's see.
jump on that question.
Awesome. Oh
Hi, Starjjil. Thank you so much. We finally got you to join us.
Yeah, I was clicking around on the different links there, and I think webinar has it to where you get an attendee view and then a panelist.
Gotcha.
No worries, I'm here. Thank you all so much.
Yeah.
So sorry
Well,
about that.
let me pause really quickly and give a quick introduction for Starjjil, and then we'll keep going with our conversation. Starjjil Shelvin is a 2019 graduate. So as our most recent graduate here on the panel, he received his Bachelor's of Science in Engineering Science and a minor in Mathematics in May of 2019. He's really excited to have a productive role with a values-oriented company where he can really utilize his skills in leadership, innovation, grit, and problem solving, as well as diversity and relationship building. He serves as the sourcing lead for the sustainability sourcing lead with the supply chain organization of Dell Technologies, and lives in Austin, Texas. So coming back into our conversation, Starjjil, if you want to talk a little bit about personal branding and really the power of professional networking, I think that's an area of passion for you.
Definitely, and thank you so much, Sydney, for putting this together and all the other panelists on the call. Just from a professional networking and career development standpoint, something that I've found very beneficial, of course, is your LinkedIn profile. Really using that to your benefit and growing your professional network. As we all know, Trinity is a very small school, so you really have to step outside of your comfort zone sometimes and really start getting those other experiences and those other different company perspectives. From just a personal branding standpoint, something that I've just really taken value of is how to go to different class trainings that teach you public speaking skills, how to have program management skills, and other skills that are going to be very relevant no matter what role you're in. And it's just really a good way to come off as a credible source, and also just shine light to Trinity. We fight so hard at Trinity to, get these amazing degrees. It's a very rigorous school. And so really want to just add value to that, and happy to discuss. So if you all have any questions, would love to kind of give you all a deep dive as well if you have any thoughts on personal branding, career development, and any other tips or tricks.
Awesome, thank you. So again, talking really about networking, can you all start by sharing a little bit of what you all do in a normal year with networking, either in the TU community or within your industry? And then maybe if we can pivot to how do we do this in COVID times? I think obviously, right, we're confined to our tiny screens most times during the day. So how are you utilizing some of these new resources to continue to network?
So for us, we, the Trinity Alumni Network is awesome. And on a normal year, we would have a lot of alumni events. And that's a really, really great way just to both get in social and networking time. Some of our events are more slated towards social nature. So some brewery events, outdoor events, but then other ones are more professional in nature. So our Making Connections event. And so all of those are a really good venue to meet alumni you might have known in the past or haven't reconnected. It's a good way to reconnect with people. And then in terms of industry, we actually have a lot of Trinity Healthcare alumni here. So we have our own networking events, but then there are also professional society events that I go to as well to make those connections. So, I think you could go to as many as you want or as little as you want, but really I think it's the quality of the time that you spend there. Even if you spend your time talking to one person most of the time, I think that's still meaningful to make that connection. And so in COVID times, it's obviously a little bit harder. It's much easier to have that face-to-face interaction with someone. But in our new world, we've done some, Zoom events. I think I've actually found that I've reconnected with some people that I haven't talked to in a while because, you have to intentionally reach out and say, hey, can we set up time for a call? And you just don't bump into them. So I think it's more about intentionality during these times and being creative with events like this panel that we're doing right now. We have the technology. It's just getting used to that kind of interaction via the screen.
And really good, just to kind of piggyback off of that, I think something that you mentioned as well, it's always the quality over the quantity. So something as a rule of thumb that I try to use for just good networking coaching is just when you make a connection, try to avoid the typical, hey, how's your day going? My day is good. Okay, bye. Like those are very clear-cut, dry conversations that don't really go anywhere. It's not really actually building and getting to know that person. So usually it's me, I try to do my due diligence to maybe look at, maybe their LinkedIn profile or maybe check out something that we have in common, something that I can relate to on a call where I now get to put a face to a name instead of just a, hey, how's your day? It's more of a, you maybe get to know a little bit more about them, their family, their pets, anything. And it really helps you build those really strong relationships. I think it's fair to say that as much as we all try not to be biased, we're all human. So typically, you're going to gravitate towards people or people you like. And the only best way to do that is to really spend that quality time and get to really invest in that person.
Yes, Starjjil's exactly right. I think one of the, people love to, be asked questions and talk about themselves. And every time I meet somebody, that's really the strategy I go to is just ask questions, find areas that you can relate to that person and really get to know them, as Starjjil said. And it really helps develop that relationship. It makes the other person feel good. And it allows you to learn more about that person so you can relate to them. And they'll remember that forever. It helps you remember their name. It helps you remember their personality. And it really helps to grow that relationship or that friendship, whatever it is. And I use that both in personal worlds and in professional worlds. When it relates to Trinity, I'm very lucky that Albuquerque is somewhat of a haven for Trinity alumni, which is somewhat strange, but I guess the admissions department and alumni department are doing a really good job here. So that's probably why. And I have 5 or 10 alumni that I'll engage with every month, whether it's over text or or social media or meeting up. And as Hannah said, I have to be intentional with building and maintaining those relationships, whether it's grabbing a beer after work or meeting up to go for a run or for a hike or whatever that is. And then on the other hand, I still keep in touch with a lot of my cross country and track teammates that I competed with and were teammates with throughout my time at Trinity. And even I have 5 or 6 teammates that actually moved to Albuquerque. Only one of them actually grew up here. So it's kind of funny how, it's somewhat of a magnet. When one person moves to a place, there's a bunch of other people who kind of end up moving there too. So we have a nice little community here, and I'm lucky that I'm able to maintain those relationships with friends that I went to school with and teammates as well.
Awesome, great. Well, we finally have our final member of our panel today. So I have Logan Ramirez on the call. Logan, do you want to go ahead and do a quick introduction, and then we can continue rolling on?
Yeah, sure. Logan Ramirez, class of '01, computer science. I played football, Starjjil, but it was a long time ago. And I'm glad to be here. Sorry it took me so long to figure things out. But keep going, Sid. You're doing great.
Yeah, no problem. We're definitely in, as right. We're figuring out this Zoom thing day by day. There's always a new kind of tool to learn. So great. Let's talk about the topic of involvement now. So each of you are involved with the Trinity community in a different way. What sparked each of you to find that way to engage since graduating, and really how did you go about finding that outlet for involvement? Let's start with Sal.
Yeah, thank you, Sydney. I've really found a good niche with both the admissions department and the alumni relations department. And for me, it's really cool to see, kind of front end, pre-Trinity, where these students are, what their experiences are going from transition from high school to Trinity, and putting myself kind of in their shoes, whatever that was 10, 12 years ago. And then on the other side, the alumni relations department, it's great because I'm able to share experiences with fellow alumni who really experienced many of the same things I did. And, it's kind of hard because I think most of us can agree that no other university had even close to similar experience as we probably did at Trinity, because it's just such a unique and such an interesting place. And, coupled with being in San Antonio, it was just a really cool experience that no one I work with or know had that similar experience. So it's nice to be able to relate with people on the alumni relations side as well. And it's pretty easy to become engaged because I think very highly of Trinity. I think very highly of the people, and therefore it just made it kind of natural to jump in with the alumni group here in Albuquerque, and then as well as engaging with the staff on the alumni relations side and the admissions side. So it's I think very highly of Trinity, and it made it real easy.
Great, thank you so much. Starjjil?
Awesome, and thank you again, Sydney. So I think starting my junior year, there was a call out at Trinity. There was a diversity and inclusion program that started up under Ali Roman. I worked under her for about 2 years. And so kind of continuing that now post-grad, I wanted to find out how can I give back and really help, and create more of that diversity and inclusion and that inclusive structure. So really a big passion for me was how do I pay it forward and now graduate from Trinity, but then come back. So I've then took on the leadership role at Dell to help recruit. So you'll probably see me, pre-COVID, I was there fall and spring semesters recruiting, and now we'll be doing that via the handshake tool virtually. But just to kind of help and really pull in, we've had a great start off this year with a new program called the Dell Scholars Program. And what that does, it kind of helps and helps us get more of a feel for our minority students and really shining light and really trying to help as well, as I say, pay it forward. I'm a first generation college student, so I really seek and strive to help others kind of find their way in some of those common questions when typically they can't go home and ask their siblings or their relatives how to study their Calculus 3 homework or just any other class for that matter. So I want to be hopefully that way of help, and that's kind of what sparked my interest to recruiting and ways to get involved at Trinity.
Great, thank you so much. Hannah?
For me, I mean, it was more of, I was just kind of missing that Trinity community, and the alumni office makes it really easy to get involved. You know, I think you don't have to be on a board or directly on like all of those committees. I think that just going to alumni events, that's kind of where I started. And then as I started to go to those, I said, you know, I want to be more of a bigger part of this. And so joining the board was kind of the next step. And then, you know, you just get more and more involved because you realize there's so much that you can do with the Trinity community. There's so many great alumni there. And I wanted to meet other alumni, not just in my city, but across the country as well, which the alumni, being part of the board and just the alumni association has given me that opportunity to meet so many other people that I never met in my time at Trinity, but who are located all across the US, which has been really great.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think, like we mentioned, it's really hard to connect in these times during COVID, but as we mentioned, recent graduates share that connecting in a new city is hard. So I think offering what you said, Hannah, that it's really easy to just start by going to events and things like that as an initial point, kind of getting those nerves out, really show that it's easy to just have conversations with people and then start building those connections and asking questions on how you can get involved. Really, I think from my perspective, right, as a member of the alumni relations team, there's really so many ways that we continue to support young alumni. I know our team right now in COVID times, we've really been putting a emphasis on scheduling individual visits with young alumni. And those are casual conversations, really how everyone's doing during this unprecedented time, and just adjusting to see how we might be able to help. In addition, really that's if there's things that we can help you get connected with, if it's with the recruitment network or with maybe Hannah in the Dallas area or Sal in Albuquerque, you know, those are easy ways for us to really help you build those networks and connections. And it's a simple thing to do. Either you can email us or connect with us on LinkedIn as staff members, and we're happy to get those settled. I'm sure that it's easy for others like Sal and Hannah, if you're ever interested, or Starjjil, to get in contact with them. Really quick messages are the best way to start doing that. I think outside of those personal connections, there's additional ways that our office will continue to support young alumni. And really the biggest thing that we're starting to talk about is the build out and launch of the Young Alumni Council. This is a completely new initiative here on campus, and it's going to be a dedicated outlet for young alumni involvement and support. We're really beginning that initial process of implementation and support. So we're looking for young alumni volunteers who are interested in helping us craft that structure and the resources. But we have that up and running, which will hopefully be next summer. We'll have some really great resources. I didn't get that. Oh, could you try again? There's the one telling me I didn't get that. But we'll have additional resources for events and other opportunities specific for young alumni in the mentoring area or connecting at events. That are really exclusive and will hopefully show that we really have a dedicated resource for support to help you in that transition from student to young alumni. But really there are so many ways for people to get involved, like you mentioned, that we've all mentioned here. There's webinars, there's podcasts, recruitment network, talking with our individuals here with other young alumni. And these are all easy ways to get involved. We also encourage people to check us out on social media and update our contact information, because that's the best way we have to stay up to date here. You'll see that we're streaming live on Facebook as well. So it'll be an opportunity for you all to continue to check back on this if you see any additional resources you want to talk about here. But yeah, really those are some of the resources that we are continuing to support young alumni that I can at least relay from the Alumni Relations Office, but definitely there are so many others. Can you all maybe as our panelists here kind of talk about other ways you think, maybe some other advice you would give to our young alumni and most recent graduates about that transition, kind of just overall in their personal and professional life, What are some of the things you wish you knew back then?
Good one.
Whoever would like to start.
Yeah, I don't mind kicking off. I think that's a really, really good, good question. I think if I were to, lessons learned, basically, is that kind of somewhat of the question? Just less
Yeah,
overall lessons
absolutely. I
learned?
think maybe
Okay.
those things you wish you knew back when.
Okay. I think for me, I would start earlier. I think it's always better to do earlier rather than later. I think being proactive is something that's always a very, very good quality to have. And again, me coming out of that kind of first generation kind of standpoint, it was more so of a trial and error situation where if I could go back and do it again, definitely starting off as early as you can, you know, even if you're a freshman or even coming into freshman year. What's to say that you can't start crafting up a resume? What's to say that you can't have a LinkedIn profile? You know, really, there's no limitation besides ourselves. So once we kind of start coming out of our comfort zone and really starting to get comfortable and learning how to just network and do the proper things to grow our professional career, we're going to be that much more set up when we come out of that degree and that much more, you know, better prepared for the real world. I know people make that distinction. I know it's all the real world right now, but the real world, I guess, is that transition coming out of that undergrad into maybe your full-time job or going to other career development. So that's what I would have to add to that.
Great, thank you. Hannah or Sal?
Yeah, I can jump in. So the kind of the three things that I first thought of with this question was what I said kind of when we kicked off the webinar was, you know, developing those strong and really productive habits with your extra time that you're not spending studying and doing those things. So that's kind of the first piece of advice. Second is, you know, really get involved with your community. I think having a community is very impactful and it's very important to someone's development when they're in their 20s and 30s. And, you know, being involved in a community, whether it's, you know, in your city or whether it's, you know, with a group that's involved with exercising or a church or whatever that community is, I think it's important to find that community and really find your place in whatever city you're in. And then the third thing is, you know, spending time working on growing yourself and really understanding yourself and doing things that make you happy, you know, trying new things, going to new places. So those are really the three things that I would recommend in terms of advice transitioning from Trinity to post-college.
Yeah, they gave such great answers. You know, I think for me, it's not always, you know, we talked a couple times, it's not an easy transition and sometimes work will feel really hard and you'll be discouraged. And, you know, I think, so kind of two things there. Enjoy the time that you have at Trinity because, you know, you'll never be able to go back and have that time where you got to spend time with your friends and, you know, your main focus was learning. So I remember when my youngest brother actually went to Trinity too, I told him, like, enjoy this time. This is probably like one of the best times of your life. You know, you're going to learn so much and make such good friends. But when you get out into the real world, you know, yeah, sometimes you'll have setbacks, but I think like Sal was saying, it's important to take care of yourself mentally and physically, make sure you have a good support system around you. And if you do feel like, you know, you're not fulfilled in your career or your job, there are resources out there to help you with that. So I've had some alumni reach out to me, you know, about potential career changes or interest in a certain industry. And so those resources are out there for you. So I think just taking full advantage of that can be very helpful. And just talking to other alumni about their experiences in their careers and getting, you know, best practices and advice has always been really valuable for me, is finding some mentors that can help you professionally, but also personal mentors as well.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. I think, Hannah, maybe another question for you. How did you go about like looking into an additional graduate program or another program? What was that transition like once you were kind of out of undergrad? How long did it take? How did you do that research?
Yeah, so for me, it started, kind of what Starjjil was saying, it started in undergrad. So trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, what you want to be when you grow up. I took a couple different paths at first as an undergrad. And so I started thinking more about what I wanted to do, post undergrad, and discovered, I think both luckily and a blessing, that, Trinity had this great healthcare administration program. But I also did do some research once I knew I was interested in healthcare administration about other programs across the country, kind of where they stood. I think it was important to me that if I went to grad school, I would be able to find a job. I think that sounds kind of like it's a very bold statement, not bold, but kind of, straight out there. But I wanted to make sure that if I was going to invest in grad school, that my chances of employment would be really high. And so one of the things that drew me to Trinity's healthcare administration program was the built-in residency, where they kind of plug you into a full year internship, and that kind of helps you jumpstart your career. So for me, some of those elements were really important. And I spent time talking to alumni from the healthcare administration program, talked to staff, just, got a feel for what that was like. And then looked at kind of what the possible careers were that could come from getting this degree. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Great, thank you. For Sal, another question for you. Can you talk a little bit about maybe career management? How have you continued to progress and grow in your industry over time?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Sydney. So I've been out of Trinity now for about 7 years, and I'm on my 4th job, and each job has progressively gotten, moved up and gotten closer to where I want to be in the future. And so each job has been somewhat of a promotion of sorts. And one of the ways that I've been able to find these opportunities and be offered these opportunities is just through, developing, first of all, a good reputation in Albuquerque, in my industry. It's like I said, it's a smaller community in terms of my industry and Albuquerque as a whole. So really developing a strong reputation and just getting to know everyone that I can. And so I always am meeting people. I'm always trying to get to know them better. I'm always trying for them to get to know me better. And therefore, when that happens, when people, have an opportunity, they think, oh yeah, maybe we'll call Sal and see if he's interested in that. And so a couple of the 3 of the jobs that I've been at, I've been approached by groups to apply for it or to join their team. And it's because of the reputation and because of the networking that I've done here in Albuquerque. And so that might be specific to kind of my industry and my community, but that's how I've found the best way to kind of grow in my industry.
Great, thank you. I think that's very valuable advice. Really, the power of connection can really open so many doors. So that's great. Thank you so much, Sal. Starjjil, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead, Hannah.
I've just been hearing about this Young Alumni Academy, and it sounds like it's a good way to, like what Sal was saying, get involved with the community. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that, or if people are interested, they could email you about that. Sounds like it's something new that you guys have put forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Young Alumni Council is definitely something, like I mentioned earlier, that we're continuing to evolve and really lay the groundwork for. But I think also, and I believe you've also done the Alumni Leadership Academy. So can you maybe talk about that'll be something we continue to offer to young alumni and all alumni really. Can you maybe talk a little bit about what the Alumni Leadership Academy did for you?
So I'm not sure what iteration or what I did with that, but I had the opportunity to attend one of the Trinity Alumni Board meetings, and go up there and kind of see how that structure worked, and then talk to the alumni team. Just shared a lot of resources with me, but yeah, I'm not sure which iteration I might have gone through.
Right. Yeah, there's definitely, we offer many leadership development opportunities at different levels, definitely for chapter leaders as well. The Alumni Leadership Academy is definitely a training for local engagement in your own community. So it's an additional kind of series of sessions that we offer for both young alumni and any generation of alumni to really get involved in their communities as well. So that might be something maybe as a next step for you all if you're interested in continuing to grow and learn. Really that perpetual learning and discovery is a huge thing about the Trinity community. So I would definitely continue to suggest that as an option. Really quickly circling back to the conversation about career management, really with Starjjil, as a recent graduate, right? You're about a year out. What do you think is maybe your next step in your career journey or move that you're interested in exploring?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, especially considering COVID-19, I think number one on my list is just job stability. It's not really a time for me to want to go in other areas and move around. I want to make sure that I go into a course where I'm working out here at Dell Technologies, and I want to really grow and build a foundation on that before that rotation. And I think really as a recent grad or a soon to be recent grad for anyone tuning in, really the goal is always how do you get your foot in the door? And I think that's the really biggest thing. And a lot of the times it's once you get your foot in the door, you can see your career elevate, but it's a matter of how do you first get that foot in? Because sometimes you really just need to get your foot in the door and then the rest is there. It's just about how do you get enough of that opportunity to even first get that? And I think it goes back to the point about how do you build your network, both internally and externally, professionally, and focusing on that. And I think just overall, as a recent grad, something that I focus on as well is just how can I learn fast and fail fast? I think a lot of people are very afraid to make mistakes, but I think when you have that growth mindset, you're really supposed to thrive on those mistakes and tell yourself that I'm not going to let that happen again, and I'm going to, continue forward and always proactively increase your development. Something my Trinity head football coach, Coach Urban, would always say is, be the standard. So we're supposed to set the bar, set the expectation. If someone isn't doing something, it's okay for you to step up and show that innovative mindset, show that adaptability, and show a sense of resilience. I think a lot of managers look for that. They look for a lot of those fresh, welcoming ideas, those bright faces that come from those recent new perspectives from the universities. And really just confidence is key. Really go in there, tell yourself that you worked really dang hard for this Trinity degree, and you're going to go and be a rock star when you get into the real world. And that's kind of just been how I looked at it for next steps. So hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Starjjil's exactly right. And, getting your foot in the door is really challenging. I think a lot of people who are in management positions or are bosses or CEOs, it can be really intimidating to reach out to those people and reach out to those decision makers about getting a meeting set up to talk to them about their company or their industry. But most people in that situation, I found, really want to provide advice to younger people. And they find that they don't know what the future of their company is going to hold, and the future is in the younger people. And getting those meetings set up and inviting them to a cup of coffee or to have lunch, even if they're busy, they'll take 30 minutes out of their day to meet with you. I don't feel like enough people actually do that, and I think can be really impactful and really powerful.
Definitely.
Absolutely, I 100% agree. I think, like you mentioned, people don't take that opportunity as much as possible, but informational interviews or coffees and chats are a great way to just put your foot in the door. If you have some questions or want some insight, that's a great way. Maybe a company's not hiring right now because of COVID and all of that, but it doesn't mean you still can't, again, like we said, network or ask questions or find ways to make those connections. So that's really great feedback, absolutely.
And one other item related to this, sorry, I'm talking everyone's head off on this issue, on this topic, but one of the, I think one of the things that a lot of people are scared of is to fail. And Starjjil mentioned this, again, hit the nail right on the head. People are scared to fail, and I think that holds people back from taking opportunities. And I think something I provide to young alumni just getting out of college is to, don't be scared to take an opportunity, and don't be scared to make that jump, make that leap. And sometimes you fail and it's fine. I recently, about a year and a half ago, was working in commercial real estate development for a group called Titan Development. Was approached to join another company here in town, national global company. And the opportunity was great. And I, was a little bit nervous because I didn't want to take it because I really liked where I was at, but the opportunity was too good to pass up. ended up taking the opportunity, made it 9 months, left because it just wasn't the right opportunity. And, that's a failure, unfortunately. But, I ended up leaving that company on March 10th of this year. Our economy shut down in New Mexico on March 11th. And and realized that was going to happen. And anyway, was lucky enough that I was able to go back to the company I was at after about 4 months of really trying to find a new opportunity amidst kind of COVID and all this craziness. But it was a little intimidating to be unemployed, and knowing that I am have the skills to join a bunch of different companies but couldn't because of COVID, and was lucky enough to go back to the company I was at in the first place. So I took that opportunity, failed, but everything ended up being okay in the end.
That's awesome. I definitely, those risks are something you've got to take. And I think it's a great example of that, Sal. Thank you so much for that insight. Well, again, as we wrap up our time here, I'll ask our panelists if they have any last words they'd like to share with our young alumni community before we wrap up.
I definitely would just recommend just being as involved as you can. I think also coming from like a student athlete perspective, being able to play football at Trinity all 4 years was just seeing that it not only was just for an extracurricular and not just because it was sports, but actually seeing how that helps you actually grow into your career professionally. Knowing that you can have those time management skills when you're, traveling on a plane to go play in a game on Saturday and you got a test come Monday, you got to get back to Trinity. So it's just managing your time, having that structure, and really kind of getting involved. I think on a resume, when you ask somebody who they're going to select, I think for proper growth, I would more so select somebody that has more of a broad sense of they've done a lot of different things, where they're not just which is, I'm not, no harm on any 4.0 GPAs. That's fantastic. But it's also, if it's just academics and there's no other structure around it, there's no volunteer work, there's no community engagement, student athlete, anything that you can show that you're doing more than just going to school to be a student, I think it transitions to the real world, showing that you can have that time management and that you can manage multiple things. So it's really good on a resume, again, for any of you tuning in, just to have different things, like what have you done in the community? What have you done at your school? Are you involved in any extracurriculars? Are you in athletics? Because that really kind of helps give you the extra push you need. Again, it comes back to how do you get your foot in the door. So really fighting tooth and nail to get your foot in the door. And then I have no doubt in my mind that you all will succeed and thrive as you continue to grow and develop.
For sure. And even post, graduation, things like being a part of the alumni network, being part of the board, like those are really good things to put on your resume as well, because it shows that, you're still taking leadership roles on outside of your career, and that you're interested in helping to help, new alumni and be part of that community. So I think, Starjjil, you're exactly right. Yeah, start early, but it's never too late also.
Very true.
And I think I'll echo, and Hannah and Starjjil will echo this as well. If there's anybody has any questions or needs anything from any of us who are young alumni or even coming into Trinity or at Trinity and just need some advice, especially people in the Albuquerque, Santa Fe market, please reach out, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, text, call, whatever it is.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you all who tuned in and our panelists for their time today. Definitely, I know we had some troubleshooting we did along the way. And thank you for your grace in that. Even during these crazy times, we hope you are doing well, and that know that Trinity is still here to support you no matter where you are around the country, around the world. Please reach out to any of us here or to the Alumni Relations staff, and we're happy to connect with you for any additional conversation. But with that, we hope you have a great rest of your day and a great week, and thanks so much for your time.